Welcome back to the Rugby Illuminati, a channel where we think the fatter your props, the better. Ireland win 22-17, and a first couple of points of order that we've got to address before we get into the game itself. One, let's never, ever again have an opera singer, an Italian opera singer singing shoulder to shoulder. It just does not sit right with me. I'm sure she's a great singer, but that's a great anthem, and the things just did not mix. It's possible to have two really nice things that they're not suited for each other, like diesel and a petrol engine. Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, another point of order. It's another year now until we have to deal with Darcy Graham and David Flatman as commentators over here in England. So thank God that's over, and we can all sit easy thinking the rest of Super Saturday will hopefully go a bit smoother with the commentary. Let's start with this game where it started, the first half. Italy get the early score, and Ireland, I think, were pretty clunky to start off with. I think one of the things that I noticed early on is that Ireland's clunkiness really kind of centred from their centre partnership of Robbie Henshaw and Gary Ringrose. I think if you're a layman, I think a lot of the fault will probably go directly to Crowley, because that seemed like the obvious choice there in terms of things that are different. Obviously, Henshaw and Ringrose have played a lot together before, but I did feel both in attack and defence that Henshaw and Ringrose just lacked a bit of chemistry. I felt like attacks looked good until it went to that centre partnership, and then things broke down. I think there were notable line breaks from Italy in that centre channel where I think communication broke down. And this all kind of led to Ireland fumbling over themselves, and then Italy finally taking advantage with what I can only describe as an excellent try, right? So I think this is really built off of a solo effort by Menoncello. He basically recognises the blitz from the outside centre channel inwards, and what he does is he steps inwards for about 3 men, and then that fourth man tackles him, and then he manages to offload it to Paolo Garbisi, who then has the pace to get past the defender, and then he kicks it in, or as he pass it into Monty Ioane for a try. A really well worked try. But I think another thing that really built to this is Ireland's own mistakes. It was clear that Ireland wanted to have possession as much as possible. I think they were watching a lot of what England did last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? All this Six Nations seems to be blending together for me at this point. However, they did watch England, and they thought that they could play with ball in hand from their own half, and that would give them the opportunity to go down the pitch, and it could allow them to score points that way, just keeping the ball and the possession. But it didn't work for them. It got very clunky, they knocked it on, they got caught crossing once or twice, and then when that didn't work, what they decided to do instead to try and get possession is they actually tried to box kick from their own half with competitive balls. That again didn't work too much. It kept giving Italy possession in Ireland's half, which fortunately for Ireland, they didn't fully capitalise on. There were some breaks that maybe could have led to a couple more scores for Italy in that first half. And it really just didn't, it looked just clunky. It just looked very, very clunky. They get a penalty, they go down to the corner, and I think what was Ireland's saving grace today is just how effective their maul was. I believe, I don't think Sheehan scored 3 tries off of line-outs, but I think 2 of them were, where it was obvious that when Ireland were 5 minutes out, they had a line-out, it was game over, and it was going to be try time. And I think that was a lot of a safety valve for what Ireland's play was. Ultimately, I think Italy shot themselves in the foot. They had that yellow card that was just so silly, slapping the ball out of Gibson-Park's hands. They didn't need to do that. That put pressure on themselves, as well as also having 3 injuries in the pack as well. I think they just kind of ran out of power in that second half because of that. And then obviously there was Ross Vincent's really head-high challenge that you could see that his thought process when he got to the sideline was just like, I can't believe I've done that. It was just so silly, and it really just dug Italy into a hole that they couldn't actually get out of. But it's to their credit that they stayed in the game for as long as they did. I mean, they were in the game right until the end. There was only 5 points in it. But that leads me to my next point, in the fact that I don't think it should have ever been that close, because of the fact that Luke Pearce decided not to have a look at that try for Keenan from James Lowe doing an excellent job staying in bounds. I don't know why he didn't take a look at it. He was so keen to look at so many other things and checking other things. He he just did not go to the TMO. And I think if I'm an Irish fan, I'm livid about that decision because, you know, fast forward, Italy, they make a break. They're one bad offload away from really kind of almost getting a try against Ireland that could have won them the game. And it should have never been that close because that was a try for Ireland. It should have been a try. But there were some good performances from Italy. A lot of their pack that stayed on or didn't get sent off were really good defensively as well. I think their backs, Menoncello, I think, is probably my favourite inside centre at the moment to watch, seeing as Tuipulotu's out. He's so powerful as a runner, and his tackling is also great. That tackle he put on Caelan Doris. Caelan Doris is a big man, so that's impressive what he did. Capuozzo, you can see why he's in that Toulouse team, just has the ability to create something out of nothing. That try that Varney scored was all Capuozzo, basically taking the ball, outpacing Ringrose, and then doing the kick forward to take Hansen to take Keenan out of the game, coming for the covering tackle, and then the ball just bouncing perfectly out of Hansen's hands so Varney can score. Capuozzo he's such a good player. So Brex is also good. They still got a huge amount of talent, and I think from an Italian perspective, this is a lot more kind of the performances that you were hoping you were going to get this Six Nations. They got blown out by England. They got blown out by France as well. But this felt like a lot more like what this team can achieve. Even though I think there was a lot of Ireland tripping over themselves, Italy did a good job of staying within the game. You know, they had some great set piece moves where they made breaks, as I've talked about before. Their forwards, even though they were arguably on paper, you know, you go from 1 to 8, they're probably not as highly rated, or as, you know, if you put them in, like, for example, like a video game, like the Ireland players would be rated more than the Italians for those kind of units. But what I've said in previous videos is that forward pack for Italy acts better as kind of like a cohesive unit. They're more than the sum of their parts, if that makes sense. And their backs, you know, there's a lot of talent back there. I thought, I can't remember the scrum half's name, but before he came off, I thought he was playing excellently in terms of exposing some weak points in Ireland's defence. He made Gibson-Park look silly with his step. So, you know, there's some real good points here. And it's just frustrating if you're Italy, because you're thinking there was just, you know, where was this before? You know, I felt like they kind of let the world cave in on themselves on that England and France game. And yeah, maybe they probably should have done better against Scotland as well. So, you know, a lot to write home for, and a lot to change probably for the next Six Nations, which I guess maybe they've got some games in between, but that's probably the next thing that they really want to try and be better at. As for Ireland then, so I've talked about the centre partnership, and now I think that Henshaw and Ringrose, they didn't really gel that well together. And it's to be expected, you know, Ringrose is trying to get himself back into the team after that long-term injury that he had. Henshaw's been playing a lot more at 13 with Bundyaki at 12. So you can understand that maybe there's not, like, for those of you that don't know, like 12 and 13 is a very chemistry-orientated position, like, because it's that midfield of the pitch, particularly in defence, you kind of have to understand if you're 12, what your 13's doing. You have to understand what they're doing, so you can react accordingly. Do you think this guy's going to make this tackle? If not, do I have to jump inside? Is this person got the pace to cover me on the outside? Otherwise, I'm trying to ship outside and trust the man on my inside to make a defensive play. And I just felt like the chemistry wasn't there, both in attack and defence. In attack as well, you know, there was a couple of occasions where Henshaw would maybe, like, he would take a crash ball, or he would receive the ball in the middle of the pitch, and he would just find himself not knowing where to go in what direction, you know, just kind of like making things clunky. And I think the midfield actually for Ireland looked a lot better once Bundyaki came on for Henshaw, and Gary Ringrose was out on that 13 shirt, just because I think it just required somebody just to take a direct line and just make a decision and just go. And obviously Bundyaki's been in that 12 shirt for the majority of the tournament as well. So I think that was what really helped Ireland kind of win this game, because if you noticed in the second half, Ireland rarely kind of got out of Italy's half of the field. They had possession the majority of the time. We can talk about their attack and how it was a little bit neutered. It didn't have the same killer instinct because they were down there for so often, but they didn't score. I'll get into that in a second. But I definitely felt with Bundyaki being on the pitch, they were at play. They had the possession and they kept themselves in Italy's half a lot more because of that change. So, talking about that, as I've said, let's talk about Ireland's attack in general. In the first half, as I said, very clunky. I think it was down to what I've already talked about. Let's not revisit that. Let's talk about the second half. And obviously, I think a lot of people, there's a lot of controversy about like Crowley being put in after Prendergast has started the whole tournament. And there's a lot of talk about that 10 shirt. My perspective on it is that I didn't think, as the game started, it didn't make sense to me why Crowley was playing in that 10 shirt, because it was obvious that Ireland wanted to play with ball in hand, no matter where they were on the pitch, right? I think that was quite obvious to me. But that would then scream to me, then if you want possession, you play with a fly half that's very possession orientated. Jack Crowley is a great fly half, a really good fly half. There's rumours he could be playing for my Leicester Tigers, which I would be overjoyed about because he would fit the Tigers very, very well. He's an excellent game manager. He's great kicking out of hand. His kicking off the tee was off today, which is uncharacteristic. He's a guy that's going to put you in the right areas of the pitch for your players to do the rest of the work. So it was very surprising for me to see Ireland try and play such possession ball in that first half, because I thought with the Crowley selection, it made me think they were more intent in playing the territory game and getting the ball and stealing the ball where they could from Italy in the opposition half. But they wouldn't do that. I don't think a lot of people will have noticed this, or maybe they did, and I don't have any particular insight, and I don't even know why I've got a rugby channel. But one thing that I noticed when Prendergast came on, I felt he looked a little bit slow. He didn't look his usual self in terms of like sprinting all over the place and dancing on the line. And I don't know whether the Ireland camp kept it very quiet that Prendergast actually picked up an injury. And my suspicion, my Illuminati, my conspiracy brain is kind of going in that direction, and that's why Crowley started. But then you kind of got a bit of a mixed message about what Ireland are doing in attack then, because if you still wanted to play possession, but you have to play Crowley instead of Prendergast, I feel like when you're forced to pick a player into a position and play a style of rugby that you've planned for, there's something that's not connecting there. In all sports, I think the best teams and what they do is they change what they do and what their plan of attack is, or defence, with the players that they have on the pitch, rather than just having this is how we play and players have to fit this mould, if that makes sense. I think the exception is New Zealand, because all New Zealanders can play in the same way with excellent footballing characteristics. But the reality is I feel like Ireland were kind of put in a juxtaposition of not having the right 10 to play the game that they wanted to play. And I think Crowley played well. I think there was some serious moments where Crowley showed his attacking prowess, but you notice it was all in the opposition half. So off of the set piece where Hugo Keenan had his first try, where Crowley set up the ball lovely, took a lovely line and let Hugo Keenan go in under the posts. That was in the opposition half. Crowley took a great line and he broke through the Italian defence again in the opposition half. Like, I don't think Crowley's not the guy to try and like play yourself out of your own half. You know, just give it to Crowley and get him to kick you and put you in the right areas of the pitch so that you can compete. And that's, yeah, I don't know whether that's because Simon Easterby's in, so like the decision making is different from when Andy Farrell would be in, but I feel like I know why Crowley was picked, but now I'm starting to feel like maybe Ireland should have changed the game plan to kind of facilitate him being on the pitch, if that makes sense. Notable performances in the back line though, so I think Gibson-Park played okay, I think Crowley played okay, Bundyaki coming on made a big difference, Ringrose I thought was okay, but I think the real superstars in Ireland's back line that saved them to some regard is I think Hugo Keenan played excellently, attacking the line interestingly at different points, scoring the tries that he did. He should have had a third try if it wasn't for Luke Pearce as well. I think he had an excellent game. Mac Hansen, always a danger, no matter where he is on the pitch. And I think I'm going to put this leg down now because it's starting to go numb. But Mac Hansen, I think as well, like, he just goes looking for work. And if you find him in any degree of space, even though he never looks like he's the quickest player, he somehow manages just to be so elusive, even in like tight areas against forwards. So I think he played excellently as well. James Lowe, I think, played good. I think there was a couple of mistakes he made, but you know, his power to get over Capuozzo a couple of times and that effort to keep in touch, which should have been awarded as a try, was really good. I do think as well, Ireland's pack really benefited from the substitutions. They kept a lot of the power coming on. I think Furlong coming on for Finlay Beam was a big difference. I thought Beelum struggled. He never got penalised, but I think he struggled in the scrum. And then it was a night and day difference for me as someone that watches the front row, Furlong coming on, where Ireland looked like they were just holding on to just get the ball out. And then when Furlong comes on, they look like they just completely dominated the scrum completely. Like, it was just like night and day difference for me. How could I not also talk about Sheehan in this game? Excellent 3 tries picked up. Really kind of putting himself forward for that Lions shirt for number 2. I don't think there's any real competition. He had an excellent game, not just for his tries, his work rate, his tackling, also kind of being always at the most breakdowns, trying to turn over ball. He is kind of like a bit of a cheat code. He's like having an extra back rower on the pitch, but also does all the things a hooker should do really well, such as the line-out throws, controlling mauls at the back of line-outs. He is just a multi-talented player, and also with ball in hand, he's very, very good as well. So probably one of Ireland's best player, and maybe the best player in today's game. And that's it. Going to try and release this video or get it out during the England-Wales game, and I'll see you when we talk about that game. See ya.